اللهم علم وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So it says باب ما جاء في الوضوء من القيء. So it says حدثنا محمد بن يحيى قال حدثنا عبد الصمد بن عبد الوارث عن أبيه أي عبد الوارث عن حسين المعلم عن يحيى بن أبي كثير. Okay, this is Shami. Okay, I believe he's originally from Basra, but he narrates. He's originally from Basra. He's Basri, but he narrates from the Shamin, Yahya ibn Abi Kathir. Right, so he's the same kind of tabaqa as Zuhri and others like that. So notice Al-Awza'i, same kind of tabaqa as Malik. Ah, but so that why is he narrating from? So he must be younger than Zuhri. Wallahu a'lam. عن الأوزاعي أن يعيش عن أبيه عن معدان بن طلحة عن أبي الدرداء أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قاء he threw up فأفطر قال فلقيت ثوبان في مسجد دمشق فذكرت ذلك له فقال صدق أنا صببت له الوضوء I'm the one who poured that wudu water for him. Right? Here's the problem. The problem is that wudu is not a term. For us, wudu is a term. But wudu was not a mustalah for them. It's not a term. So when they said wudu, they're frequently going to say tawadda wudu'aka lis-salah, as you do for prayer. Here it just says, I poured the water for him to wash. So did the Prophet simply remove the filth? Or did the Prophet ﷺ actually make wudu? Okay? So, many of the Sahaba and the Salaf, they saw that any najasa that comes out of your body, that's what breaks wudu. Right? Any najasa that comes out, that's what breaks wudu. Right? So that's why the Hanafis, they say yes. Throwing up, if it fills your mouth, then it breaks wudu. Right? Hanbalis, a similar kind of thing. Right? They say a small amount, no, but a significant amount of blood, a significant amount of vomit, a significant amount, any filth that comes out of you, that breaks wudu. Right? The Shafis, we say, filth coming out of the body does not break wudu. Something come out of your private parts breaks wudu. Right? And we say here, this is it's not very clear. Did he make wudu or did he just wash himself? It's not very clear. So it's better to when you throw up, may Allah protect us and give us health. You have filth in your mouth, so you gargle, right? Don't swallow any traces of vomit in your mouth. You gargle, spit it out, okay, and then make wudu before you pray. It's a better thing to do. I believe it's the ikhtiyar of Ibn Hibban. If I'm correct, maybe some double check. Pretty sure Ibn Hibban says you have to do that. Like that's his ikhtiyar, that you have to make wudu from throwing up. Allahu a'lam. باب في الوضوء من النوم. حدثنا ابن مقرئ وعبد الله بن هاشم ومحمود بن آدم. Notice he doesn't say ha, right? Ha is I have one chain, so and so from so and so, and then another chain, so and so, so and so, and my grand teacher on both sides, or my great grand teacher on both sides merge, right? That's ha, meaning it merges. Here I'm saying these three people told me, right? They all said قالوا حدثنا سفيان, right? Sufyan from Zuhri is usually Sufyan ibn Uyayna, right? Sufyan ibn Uyayna. And frequently Sufyan ibn Uyayna and Imam Malik will both narrate the self-same hadith, right? The self-same hadith will be narrated from Sufyan ibn Uyayna from Zuhri and Malik from Zuhri, self-same hadith, right? So it says here 5. So this is number 9, so right? 9. No, it doesn't mention where it's from. But it's in Mim, Muslim, Dal, Abu Dawood, Ta, Tirmidhi, Seen. What's seen?
نسائي.
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 قاف.
قزوين. ابن
قزويني.
ماجه.
Ibn Majah from Qazwin, right? Caspian Sea, Qazwin, Caspian Sea. Kha Bukhari. Right, so it's all over the place. So it's probably in Muwatta as well. Allahu A'lam. عن الزهري عن أبي سلمة عن أبي هريرة. So this is a classic chain, and as we know, people like Zafar and others, right? So this is what we call لزم الطريق, right? لزم الطريق is somebody's heard Zuhri and Abi Salima and Abu Huraira 50,000 times. Okay, there's 50,000 hadith in the head. Zuhri and Abi Salama and Abu Huraira, hyperbole, of course, right? So then they hear a Zuhri from they say hear a Zuhri, and then they just copy and paste this into it. So suddenly the hadith seems really, really good. It's Zuhri from Abu Salama from Abu Huraira, but it isn't. Right? I'm not saying with this hadith specifically. I'm saying this is very famous. This is very common, right? Like if you had like when you're typing and you say are you about to, and it suggests arrive, because that's what usually it's probably going to write the word arrive, right? So this is what happens for the muhaddithin. They will do this kind of mistake. Zuhri from Abi Salama from Abu Huraira, but it's not, right? So that happened with the hadith من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعني, right? So the hadith is narrated from Imam Malik from Az-Zuhri from Zayn al-Abidin. From Zayn al-Abidin, which is Ali ibn Hussein ibn Ali, right? Zayn al-Abidin, tabi'i, um, from the Prophet ﷺ as a mursal hadith, right? The great grandson of the Prophet ﷺ narrating from the Prophet ﷺ. That's how Imam Malik narrates it. It's narrated by Al-Awza'i as from Zuhri, from Abu Salama to Abu Huraira, right? So it all goes to Zuhri, but they're saying, oh, Zuhri from Abi Salama from Abu Huraira, because there are so many hadith like that. So you say lazima at-tariq, right? They stuck, or lazim al-jadda. He stuck to the main road. Like that was so common, but that's actually a mistake, right? That's a mistake, right? So this is a very common system here. So قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا قام أحدكم من نومه فلا يغمس يده في وضوئه حتى يغسلها ثلاثا فإنه لا يدري أين باتت يده. قال ابن المقرئ مرة حيث باتت. Right? أين or حيث, exactly the same thing, no difference. Right? حيث باتت, أين باتت, same thing. لا يدري حيث, لا يدري أين. Right? والحديث لابن المقرئ, this is Ibn Muqri''s narration of it. So he's saying, I heard this from three people, but I'm using the words of Ibn Muqri'. That's what he means here. والحديث لي, meaning that's what I'm mentioning. Right? And he says Ibn Muqri' said that once, حيث. So notice Ibn Muqri' once said حيث and once said ain. That means he's paraphrasing, right? He's actually paraphrasing, because he said حيث, which means where, and aina, which means where, but he's not doing it verbatim. Right? So we say, what is this? So we say, here's a hadith. The zahir of the hadith is that it is haram to put your hands into the container of wudu, okay? Um, until you wash it 3 times. That is the default. Okay? And it also says where his hand spent the night. So the zahir is exclusive to the night. Okay? So at night, if you sleep at night, so sleeping, and it's at night, and the container is a container of water that you use for wudu, then you are obliged to wash your hand 3 times before you put your hand in it. Right? That's the default of the hadith. So the Shafi'is that come along and say a number of things. Number one, what's the difference between sleeping at night and sleeping during the day? Nothing. So that is merely circumstantial. Okay? Number two, okay? Number two, um, it doesn't make any difference if it's your wudu water or something else. No, right? So it's not specific. So being it's your wudu water or any other water, that's circumstantial. That's not right. It's called kharaja makhraj al-ghalib. But just like you just mentioned that as because that's the norm, right? Not because it's actually a condition. Okay, so we're talking about water. Okay, you have slept and woken up. Okay, so it says you don't know where you because you don't know where you spent the night. Your hand spent the night. What if you do know? You had a camera over your hands. Somebody was watching you, right? What if you didn't sleep, but you don't know where your hands were, right? What if you didn't sleep, but you don't know what your hands have touched, right? I went out in the field today and I touched this, touched that. I'm not sure what my hands have touched. So they say we don't care about sleeping because that's just circumstantial. What we're interested in is you not having yaqeen that your hands are clean. So if you slept and you have yaqeen that your hands are clean, then it doesn't matter. And if you haven't slept, but you're not sure if your hands are clean, that's the same. So the illah is عدم اليقين بطهارة اليدين. Okay, that's in the Shafi school. That's how they look at it. Obviously, these are all assumptions, right? Hanbalis might look at it another way. Ibn Habib, for example, the Malikis, he said, yeah, it's specific to night because it's talking about najasa, meaning you had relations and you didn't make ghusl and you don't know where your hand touched or didn't touch. So you might have filth on your hand. So you're now going to make ghusl and you put your hand in that container. Don't do that because you don't know. Okay, so every scholar is looking at something and editing out what they believe is irrelevant and editing in what they think is relevant, right? Based on how they're analyzing it. So the Shafis, we say, what it means is whether you're asleep, not asleep, whether it was night, it wasn't night, whether it's your wudu bowl or not your wudu bowl. The point is putting your hand into a container of water when you are not sure that your hands are clean. If you are sure whether you slept or not, it's fine. And if you're not sure whether you slept or not, then it's not good. It's not okay. So now we come to the command. It says فَلَا يَغْمِسْ, right? أَلَّا يَغْمِسْ, the default is النهي يفيد الحرمة, right? It's haram, right? في تحريم. النهي is for تحريم. It's haram. فَلا يَغْمِسْ, right? ما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا, right? What the Prophet forbids you to do, don't do it. So don't do it. So now we come along and say, no, it is not haram, it is makruh. Why? Okay, why is it makruh? Two reasons. Number one, this is my water. Am I allowed to do itlaf of my own to destroy my own wealth? Yes, I can do that. Can I get a bucket of water and pour it out? I can do that. That's a waste, but I can do that. It's not haram. Okay, so number one. Number two, al-yaqeen la yazulu bil-shak. Certainty shall not be lifted by doubt. So we already know this principle that comes again and again in Sharia. There's a default state on everything. So what is the default state on my hand? Even if it's very likely that it's filthy, the default state of my hand is pure. So can my hand, which is merely possibly or even likely filthy, could it make the water filthy? No. So therefore, if you disobeyed the Prophet ﷺ and put your hands in the container without washing it 3 times, what would be the hukm on the water? Pure. How do you know that? The Prophet said, "Da' ma yaribuk ila ma la yaribuk." Leave which you're not sure about for that which you are sure about. Right? Inna dhanna la yughni anil haqqi shay'a, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Mere conjecture means nothing in the face of truth. Right? So we say when the Prophet ﷺ was commanding us to do this, he was saying this min bab al-adab, right? Min bab al-adab. It's better that you do this, and I don't want you to do this. So it is makruh for you to do that, whether you were asleep or not, whether you're happy about wasting your water or not, right? And then the Shafi'is understand a second thing, right? Everyone's understanding so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone's following? Okay. The Shafi'is then they say, well, what else does this hadith tell us? This hadith also tells us that a small amount of water will become filthy through mere contact. How? Well, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, just be a little bit careful because you don't know what kind of najasa might be on your hand. Well, if a small body of water would only become filthy through change, then there wouldn't be any issue of la yadri. Like you would know, you had blood all over your hand, you put blood in the container of water, and it all becomes bloody. There we go. So what it means is you don't know and you won't know because a small amount of body of water will become filthy through mere contact. Okay, so you could say because a small amount of body of water will become filthy through mere contact, even if it doesn't change. You wouldn't know if you had filth on your hand when you touched it because it won't change and it will still be filthy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. So it's very important to understand this that that what we're doing is we are cutting and slicing revelation, right? Not intentionally. We're trying like not picking and choosing. But we're looking at something and you have a brain and you're like, what is Allah telling me? Right? We're saying he's saying this for this reason, that for that reason, this for this reason, that for that reason, right? So notice how they totally changed the hadith, right? It's got nothing to do with wudu, water, nothing to do with sleeping, right? Nothing to do with spending the night, right? But we say 3 times yes. So what if I had yaqeen now? So if I have yaqeen, is no issue. What if I don't have yaqeen? Then you still wash your hand 3 times, right? And we can also understand from this that it's recommended to wash something 3 times from filth. So if you have blood in your hand, even if it will come off with one wash, it's recommended to do it 3 times. Why? Because here we go. Okay. Everyone's happy? Makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. So then he says, right? And then the assumption in all of this is then when you wake up, you make wudu. So therefore, sleep breaks wudu. Okay? That's the assumption as well. He says, حدثنا محمود بن آدم قال حدثنا سفيان عن عمرو. So when it says Amr and Kurayb and Ibn Abbas, where are we? Which city are we in? Ibn Abbas, where is he? So we have the Kufan school with Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. We have the Medinan school with Zayd ibn Thabit, Abdullah ibn Umar, Aisha radiallahu anha. And then we have the Meccan school. So this is a Meccan hadith. Okay? Ibn Abbas, we find him at other places as well. But here's Kurayb. This is the Kurayb, that the whole story of what is it? About Ramadan. Is Ramadan the same everywhere, or is it specific to your location? Right? That's called Hadith Kurayb. So this is one of the students of Ibn Abbas. Right? He was in Damascus and he comes back to Medina, I believe, but he's in Mecca anyway. Qurayb's in Mecca, right? So, and then Amr ibn Dinar. Okay, so there's Abdullah ibn Dinar. I believe he passes away in similar time, like 124, something like that. 124, 125. Abdullah ibn Dinar in Medina, Amr ibn Dinar in Mecca. Okay, so this is Sufyan ibn Uyayna. So Sufyan ibn Uyayna, many of his hadiths, if not most of his hadiths, are Madani or Makki, right? He is originally from Iraq. Sufyan ibn Uyayna is originally from Iraq. But a lot of his hadiths are Hijazi. So they are Meccan or Medinan, right? So Sufyan ibn Uyayna from Amr ibn Dinar, from Kurayb, from Ibn Abbas, right? This is a Meccan hadith. قال بت عند خالتي ميمونة فرأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قام من الليل إلى السقاء, right? Water skin. فأخذ منه ماء فتوضأ وضوءا خفيفا يقلله ويخففه قال فصنعت مثل الذي صنع فقمت عن شماله فحولني عن يمينه. Right, for which reason the Hanbalis, they say it is a necessary condition that the ma'mum stands to the right and not to the left. Right, we just say it sometimes. Shafi'i school. ثم صلى ما شاء الله أن يصلي ثم نام حتى نفخ نفح نفخ نفس نفث نفى da nafadha. These nafa is all to mean, or nafaqa, all to go through, right? So the sound is going through your mouth. Nafaqa, that going through the tunnel. Nun fa is all to go through. Nufudh, effective, to go through something, right? But then specifically nafasa, nafa, nafa qa, nafa tha, right? These are all to do with sounds from your mouth. So things are going through. So nafasa, to breathe, or breath. Nafas, breath. Nafakh, to here it means to snore in reality, but it means like to blow into something, like blowing something. Yanfukh, right? Yunfakhu fi sur, to blow into the trumpet. And then nafa 30, right? That's to spit without that means to spit without saliva coming out, right? So they're all related there. So the point is he was actually asleep. ثم أتاه المنادي, the mu'adhin, فقام إلى الصلاة ولم يتوضأ. Okay, so the zahir of the hadith is sleep does not break wudu. That's the zahir of the hadith, right? Because he was asleep and he didn't make wudu, right? Is that the case? No, it's not. But that's the zahir at least. حدثنا محمود بن يحيى وأحمد بن يوسف قال حدثنا عبد الرزاق. This is Abdul Razzaq as-Sana'ani. Okay, the author of the Musannaf Abdul Razzaq. So there's two really, 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 really important books, right? One is Musannaf Abdul Razzaq as-Sana'ani. The other one is the Musannaf Ibn Abi Shaybah. Okay, why are they so important? Because like the Muwatta, they open the door to the fatwa of the Sahaba and Tabi'een. So these are people who are of the tabaqa of the shuyukh of the 6 books. Notice here, this is his grand sheikh, right? Abdul Razzaq San'ani is the teacher of Imam Ahmad, one of the teachers of Imam Ahmad, right? Ibn Abi Shaybah is a little bit younger, so he's a teacher of Muslim, right? So Abdul Razzaq San'ani, their hadith, and Ibn Abi Shaybah, their hadiths fill the 6 books, number 1. So they're marfu' hadiths. Number 2, you want to find out what the Sahaba said about something. There's many sources, right? But these are one of the most important sources ever, right? So you just want to get an idea, like, what are the fatwa of the Sahaba on this issue, right? So Ramadan's around the corner, right? Not too far away. And you start thinking Taraweeh. Oh yeah, Taraweeh. How did the Sahaba pray Taraweeh? Right? If you want to go and have a look, right? Is there ijma'? Is there like a fantastic place to go to, right? So these are really, really important books to get. Musannaf Abdul Razzaq San'ani in 11 volumes. And the Musannaf Ibn Abi Shaybah in 24 volumes, I believe. Right? Really, really important books to get. Like to have them in your house. Very important books. Like change your perspective on things. Right? قال حدثنا سفيان عن سلمة بن كهيل عن كريب عن ابن عباس. Same hadith in reality, right? It's the same hadith, but slightly different version. So this is considered the same hadith. You say hadith Kurayb. It's called the hadith of Kurayb, right? Just like we might say, oh, that hadith in Bukhari. They used to say, oh, the hadith of Kurayb. Because all of these different people will have narrated it from Kurayb, from Ibn Abbas. قال بت عند خالتي ميمونة بنت الحارث فقام النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من الليل يصلي ثم اضطجع, lie down on his side, فنام حتى نفخ. قال ثم جاء بلال فآذنه بالصلاة فقام فصلى ولم يتوضأ. Exactly the same hadith, right? So he could have he could have just said ha, right? He could have put it together as one hadith, right? So he could what he could have done is he said what he could have done is put this hadith first, said ha, and then go back to the beginning and go to Qurayb, and then just mention the difference at the end, right? There is some kind of leeway in how you organize it, right? Because it is essentially 10 and 11 are essentially the same hadith. And so you realize then, if 10 and 11 are the same hadith, right? And half of these hadiths you can cut out, and there's about 1,000 hadith in this book, right? Then how many hadiths are there to do with halal and haram? There's about 1,000 hadith here, and you can cut out about half of them.
500.
About 500, right? So in Sira Alam al-Nubala, Imam al-Dhahabi narrates with a Sahih chain transmission, right? I believe through Ibn Khuzaymah, through Buwayti, I believe, through Imam Shafi. The Imam Shafi said the hadiths of halal haram are about 500. All of them are with Malik, apart from 30 that are with Sufyan ibn Uyayna. So we're talking about that kind of number, right? If you go through Bulugh al-Maram, it's about 1,000 hadith again. You can cut half of them out as well, right? So the similarly hadith, the ayat al-ahkam, the verses of halal and haram in the Quran are not that many. It's about 500 as well, right? So the central hadiths to do with halal and haram and fiqh are not that many, right? I think the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, the marfu' hadiths in the Muwatta are something around about 500 as well, right? If you cut out all the Fatawa, Sahaba and Tabi'in, it's about 500 hadith, right? So the main hadith to do with halal and haram about 500. In the Umdat al-Ahkam al-Sughra of al-Kubra, afwan, the Umdat al-Ahkam al-Kubra of name al-Maqdisi, Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi, right, the cousin of Ibn Qudama. The hadith is something about 800 hadith. He organizes together there, but it's about 800 hadith. So that's in hadiths that are in Bukhari, Muslim, and some of the Sunan he adds. It's about that kind of number. Right? So when you say this person knew 1,000,000 hadith, a lot of these things are repetitions. A lot of these things are different turuq for the same hadith, kind of, or you're adding to that quotes of the Sahaba and Tabi'in, etc. Right? But the main hadiths to halal haram, right? So it's seldom that you find a hadith like, oh my God, I found a hadith that's in the Tabaqat of Ibn Sa'ad that changes halal haram. It's very rare. Oh, I found a hadith that Tabari mentions in his tafsir, and there's no other chain for it anywhere else, and it's only in tafsir al-Tabari, and it changes halal haram. Doesn't really happen. Right? Most of the main hadiths are known to everybody. Right? And they're not that many. Right? And I believe Imam Ghazali said that. He said somebody who has Abu Dawood, Sunnah Abu Dawood, that's enough for ijtihad, right? Allahu alam. You can double check that quote. That's about 5,000 hadith, not 500 hadith. Okay. Okay, again, the zahir of these two hadiths is sleeping does not break your wudu. That's the zahir, right? What's the initial outward purport of something is it does not break your wudu if you sleep. فصلى ولم يتوضأ. حدثنا يعقوب بن إبراهيم الدورقي قال حدثنا يحيى بن سعيد القطان والله أعلم. Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan, yes. So there's two Yahya ibn Sa'ids. Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan, al-Muhaddith, al-Iraqi, al-Naqid. Okay, he's a hadith critic, super important hadith critic. Okay, and there is an older Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari who is the Qadi of Medina. Okay, so how do I know this is Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan? Okay, so Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, he's in Medina. Okay, he's in Medina. He is the teacher of one second. He's a student of He is the student of Sa'id al-Musayyab. So Sa'id al-Musayyab, this is of the Tabi'een. His student, Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari. His student, Imam Malik. Right? He may narrate from him, may narrate from with a gap. So we're talking about somebody. So Imam Malik dies, it passes away in 179. So we're talking about somebody who passes away in about 150. Right? That's Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari. Okay? So that would mean, so this author, he is studying, right? He passes away in something like what is it? Look right at the beginning of the book, page 90. He passes away when? 307, right? So you study with somebody who passed away in 150? Or your teacher did? I don't think so. I don't think your teacher, right? Where are we? So our scholar, he says that he passes away in 307. Okay, so his teacher at best is going to be passing away in 250. And his teacher at best is going to be like studying, passing away in like 200. Right? So, and that's pushing it a little bit. So yes, as you go later on into the 4th and 5th century, you will see that in each gap, each narrator is passing by about 100 years. Okay? So yes, you might find that, right? You have this chain for the Muwatta that goes through this teacher in goes back to Morocco and Spain, and literally you look at the dates, like for each teacher, it's almost 100 years or 90 years gap. Why? Because when you get into the 4th and 5th and 6th century, the chains are so many that everyone's just picking and choosing. What they're doing is the Muwatta is super famous. They get their 5-year-old kid to sit in the Muwatta class, okay, in Granada. And then he is now 95, and everyone's like, dude, this guy's 95 and he has a chain to so and so. Everyone's now going to this 95-year-old and trying to hear the Muwatta from him because there's such a variety of teachers that the hadith has spread so far. So it's easy to do that. But at their time, it's not like that, right? Like you're studying with a Sahabi, the Sahabi dies, passes away 10, 20 years after Prophet 30 years after Prophet, etc. Right? So you don't have that many people to narrate from, and so the gap isn't that far, right? So it's usually going to be like a 30-year gap in between, not a 100-year gap. So if we said 30 years, right? Our author passes away 370, so then 270, and then 240, right? That would be like Imam Ahmad. So this cannot be Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, because that would be way before. That would be like 100 years before him. So this is the younger hadith critic, Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan, who's in Iraq. Okay? Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan, and not Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari. Okay? So he narrates from Ibn Ajlan, and who narrates from Abu Huraira, who said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تنام عيني ولا ينام قلبي. There's a difference. So he says, هذا الحديث من زيادات ابن جارود على كتب الستة. It is not found in any of the 6 books. Okay? This hadith is not found in any of the 6 books. It's well known, but it's not found in the 6 books. It's narrated by Imam Ahmad, it's narrated by Ibn Khuzaymah, it's narrated by Ibn Hibban, but it is not narrated it's not narrated in any of the 6 books. Okay, so usually the hadiths we're going to see are hadiths that are in the 6 books, right? Basically, this book is a baby version. I'm not trying to make it seem, but like an accessible small version of Tirmidhi, of Abu Dawud, etc. Right? It's not on the level of Bukhari and Muslim. It's more inclusive, but it's very short, right? But here there's a hadith that is not in any of the 6 books. It's there in Ibn Khuzaymah, Ibn Hibban, etc. Okay, and to get a picture of the tabaqat, anybody's interested, find this hadith, right? تنام عيني ولا ينام قلبي. Find this hadith in Ibn Hibban. So Ibn Hibban is passing away 50 years later, 40 years later, I believe. I think he passes away in like Ibn Hibban like 360 or something like that. So he's, a generation or 2 after Ibn Jarud, right? Allahu A'lam. So you can see how long his chain is going to be longer. You can see more people in the chain. So this is Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan from Muhammad ibn Ajlan, who is good. He's not amazing. Okay, he's good, not amazing. It's not a hadith that you're going to find in Bukhari and Muslim. Who narrates, he says, Sami'tu Abi, right? It's from his father, from Abu Hurairah, right? قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تنام عيني ولا ينام قلبي. So this is of the khasa'is of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. So now we're going to come along and say, aha, these two sahih hadiths are of the khasa'is of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did this, that is specific to him, that doesn't apply to me. Yes, if I actually sleep, I have to make wudu. Okay? Just like the Hanafis, they say the Salat al-Ghaib, right? Salat al-Ghaib. Here, subhanAllah, in Malaysia, every day they do Salat al-Ghaib for the people in Gaza, right? So Salat al-Ghaib, they say Salat al-Ghaib was of the khasa'is of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like a miracle happened with him, and Najashi was kind of like almost brought to him, like he was made to be present with him, almost physically. So that's something that's unique to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You cannot do Salat al-Ghaib. It's not a thing that you can do. That's something specific to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so anyway, it does not mention here the issue of how one sleeps. It just says sleep. So the dhahir then, right? The dhahir is that sleep mutlaqan breaks wudu, right? And this is the position of some scholars like Ibn Mundhir and like Al-Muzani, right? They say sleep mutlaqan breaks wudu, right? The Shafi school is sleep while not firmly seated breaks wudu, right? And there's evidence for this, various different hadith that we can use to prove that, and also fatwa of some of the Sahaba as well, that they say, if you're sleeping on your side, it breaks wudu, otherwise it doesn't. Okay, and the Hanafis have a kind of other nuance as well. So it says, الطهارة للمغمى عليه, passing out, right? أغمي عليه, he passed out. حدثنا محمد بن يحيى قال حدثنا معاوية بن عمرو قال حدثنا زائدة, right? So what's this little red box here? I go down here, right? This is hadith 13. I go down here and I found this hadith is in Bukhari. Meme is
Muslim.
Muslim. Seen is
Nasa'i.
Nasa'i. Good, right? So I find it in there. I find the different chains and I realize they all converge, different chains, they all converge on Za'ida. Okay? They all converge on Za'ida. So, right? So I don't really need to know who these people are. Right? Because they're all corresponding. So basically I'm here in this, right? So this is Za'ida Iraqi scholar, right? قال حدثنا موسى بن أبي عائشة عن عبيد الله بن عبد الله قال دخلت على عائشة. So this is what we frequently find. Aisha was a faqihah. When she was old, young tabi'een would go and ask her questions. Right? دخلت على عائشة رضي الله عنها فقلت لها ألا تحدثينني. So the noon is dropped. ألا تحدثينني عن مرض رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. قالت بلى. ثقل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He became very sick. He became heavy. قال فقال أصلى الناس قلنا لا هم ينتظرونك يا رسول الله. قال ضعوا لي ماء في المخضب. Right? خضاب is what's it called? To dye something. Right? To dye something. Here's what al-mikhdab, he says, شبه المركن, a container. يغسل فيه الثياب. Put some water for me in some containers. And he says, انظر النهاية. Right? النهاية. This is نهاية. This is النهاية في غريب الأثر. Okay? By Ibn Athir. Another very important book. Right? Words that are difficult to understand in hadiths, go here. Right? تحفة al-Ashraf by Al-Hafidh al-Mizzi. So he's already telling you, by the way, I've got this hadith that's in one of the 6 books. I will gather all the chains for you together so you can see exactly what's going on. Okay? So, super important book, Tuhfat al-Ashraf. right? These are what I'm referring to is books that are for the non-specialist, right? I am not going to specialize in hadith. I'm not about to do a PhD in this thing. I am just a talib ilm. What is my toolkit? Tuhfat al-Ashraf, Tahdhib al-Tahdhib, Nihaya, right? I don't want a million books. I don't have time to read a million books. I just need one reliable book. Okay? Here's a hadith that's in the 6 books. Where will I find it? Tuhfat al-Ashraf. He gave you the number, right? There it is. Tahdhib al-Tahdhib, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. Give me the upshot on Ibn Ajlan and Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Tell me, what are these people like? Okay? I can't read a million books. I don't have time, right? I want to have a general idea about the ikhtilaf of Sahaba and Tabi'een, not a comprehensive one. Have a look in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba. Have a look in Musannaf Abdul Razak, right? This is what we're trying to do. I'm trying to, I'm not a specialist in hadith. I'm not a specialist in hadith. I don't consider myself a specialist in hadith. And it's very difficult to become a specialist in hadith, right? What I mean is an educated layman who's trying to educate laymen. Does that make sense? So I'm just genuinely familiar. If I was special in hadith, who's Muhammad ibn Yahya? I don't know, Habibi. I don't know who he is. Do I need to know who he is? Not really. He's one of his teachers. Maybe he's going to be another teacher of Tirmidhi. I don't know. But I know it's not that important. It's not super important, right? But I do need, okay, Za'ida. Oh yeah, I've seen him. He's pretty important. He comes up a lot. And I know the concept of madar, right? So these are basic toolkits. This is like, right, Arif, you're in Singapore, right? Is Arif is here? No, he's not. Anyway, but in England we have, right, Zafar, right? We're talking about GCSE hadith studies, right? This is what we're talking about. So I did not study chemistry at university, right? But I know, for example, in chemistry, we're talking about reactions, talking about, periodic table. We're talking about, I know something called, what's it called? Displacement reactions, and its use in making sure metal doesn't rust, right? That's Farid Dingle as a functioning human being in the world, right? That's what we're trying to do here. Functioning human being in the world as a Muslim, as opposed to specialist. If you want to be a specialist, that's another kettle of fish, right? But this is basic functioning, right? قال حدثني موسى بن عبيد. So he says, where do we get to? ضعوا لي ماء في المخضب. قال ففعلنا فاغتسل ثم ذهب لينوء. ناء به. ينوء به means to weigh down usually. Here he says ينوء ينهض, to get up. So notice again, shortcut. This is not scholarly work here. There is scholarly work in this edition, but this is simple work here, right? It says argon, and you put footnote. You Google argon, noble gas, right? AR or something like that. Like, oh, I know that, capillary action. Oh, capillary action. Right? I'm not a biologist. I know something about capillary action. Don't understand what it is. I understand what it is, but don't know how it works, right? This is what I'm talking about, like basic things. A lot of these things it's like basic. That's not an advanced thing. He looked in the most obvious place to find it, and he find yanu'u means yanhad, to get up, right? And so what is it? ثم ذهب لينوء. He started to get up. فأغمي عليه صلى الله عليه وسلم. Then he passed out. ثم أفاق. Then he came to. فقال أصلى الناس. فقلنا لا هم ينتظرونك. قال يا رسول الله. قال دعوا لي ماء في المخطب. He repeats himself. ففعلنا. قالت فاغتسل ثم ذهب لينوء فأغمي عليه ثم أفاق. فقال أصلى الناس. فقلنا لا هم ينتظرونك يا رسول الله. فقال ضعوا لي ماء في المخضب. ففعلنا. قالت فاغتسل ثم ذهب لينوء فأغمي عليه ثم أفاق. فقال أصلى الناس. فقلنا لا هم ينتظرونك يا رسول الله. قالت والناس عكوفا, they're waiting in the masjid. ينتظرون رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لصلاة العشاء الآخرة, meaning not Maghrib. قالت فأرسل إلى أبي بكر أن يصلي بالناس. Right, so he sends in Abu Bakr to lead people in prayer. Right, and so the Prophet ﷺ, why? The Prophet ﷺ saw that the prayer, and particularly the prayer in a group, is the central point of everything. Right, so in Umar, he told his governors, he said, it's pretty simple, guys. pray on time. If you don't pray on time, you don't pray properly, you're not going to be good governors. You cannot be politicians. You cannot be leaders. It's not going to work, right? So you need to connect with Allah. You need to come together to connect with Allah. That is the pulse of the community. If it's happening, it's happening. If it's not, then nothing's happening, right? Okay. Khair. Okay, so the zahir of the hadith then is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was making ghusl because he passed out. That's the zahir of the hadith, right? فاغتسل, right? Maybe he didn't make ghusl, maybe he just made wudu, right? Maybe he just washed his face. I don't know. Right? The zahir of the hadith is he's making ghusl for passing out, right? So the Shafis, we say, if you pass out, it breaks your wudu. And if you go insane, it's recommended to make ghusl, right? It's recommended if you go insane to make ghusl. May Allah protect us all. Okay, so it says طهارة المشرك إذا أسلم. So it says حدثنا إبراهيم بن مرزوق. Same narrator, right? No, different one. That was one before. Marzuq was the one up here. So key concept, at the time of Ibn Jarud, there are 1,000 Ibn Jaruds. And the time of his teacher, there are 1,000 of them. So Ibrahim and Marzuq, oh, is this a particularly important person? Not really, right? Because there are thousands of them, right? So if you can imagine, like, you're watching a documentary about lions. Is this an endangered species? No. Okay, so I'm seeing one lion on TV, and you're following one pride. That is of thousands of lions, right? So at this stage of the time here, we're talking about in the 3rd century, everything is widespread now. All the hadiths are widespread. Just because you don't find it in Bukhari doesn't mean Bukhari doesn't know that hadith. All of these hadiths, everybody's heard all of these hadiths, right? The person you're mentioning is not particularly significant. Who you're mentioning, like Imam Bukhari will quote the self-same hadith twice from 2 different people, sometimes for a reason, sometimes for no reason. I have to quote some source, right? Right? I'm mentioning something trivial and known. Hartford is in England, and it was established in this time. And I mentioned any source I mention is going to be insignificant because it's so widespread, right? When you get up to here, Sufyan is like, oh, that's different. Maybe Sufyan will be the only person with that hadith. Maybe Al-Aghar will be the only person hadith, right? So as you go up, you're going to have lots of tafarrud. Like you're the only person with that hadith, right? Maybe you only find it with Sufyan ibn Uyayna and Malik and nobody else, right? That's why the whole world is traveling to Imam Malik, because he's the only person with this hadith, or he and another person, right? Whereas you get to the next generation, yeah, it's like, right? As we mentioned last week, Imam al-Dhahabi said, you meet one of these people and they have 1,000,000 hadith and only 1 or 2 of them are unique. Everything, that it's all widespread by that time. The year from the 3rd century, meaning the year 200 on, everything's widespread. From the year 100 to 200, things are not so widespread. It is genuinely unique. This person is the only person with that narration. Okay, so he says, طهارة المشرك حدثنا إبراهيم بن مرزوق قال حدثنا أبو عامر عن سفيان. So I look around, right? 14. This hadith is in Dal, which is
Abu Dawud.
Abu Dawood. Ta. What's Ta? Tirmidhi. Seen. Nasai. Okay. I find, and they have different chains. They all go back to Sufyan. Okay, so Sufyan is what's called the madar of the hadith. عن الأغر عن خليفة بن حسين بن قيس بن عاصم عن جده قيس بن عاصم أنه أسلم فأمره النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يغتسل بماء وسدر. Okay? So the dhahir of this hadith is that when you become Muslim, you have to make ghusl. So you ask the question, why? Is it because you become Muslim, or is it for another reason? So the Shafis, we say, it is for another reason. Okay, what is that reason? So because you're an adult, and adults do things, or things happen to them, that they need to make ghusl. So if you need to make ghusl because you're an adult, and you reach puberty, and one of the asbab of ghusl happened to you even before Islam, then you have to make ghusl. Otherwise, if you reach puberty, for example, by just reaching 15 years of age, and as a woman you never had a period, and you never had any relations, or as a man you never had a wet dream or anything, then it is simply recommended to make ghusl. حدثنا محمد بن يحيى قال حدثنا عبد الرزاق. Who is this? Who's Abdul Razzaq? That's Sa'id. That's Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan. This is Abdul Razzaq Sun'ani. So imagine he's in Sana'a, right? Sana'a is you're in Yemen. So Imam Ahmad was traveling, I believe, with, I don't know who he was traveling with. And they were traveling all the way down from Baghdad, all the way down towards Mecca, and from Mecca all the way down to the desert and the hot sand and the heat and the danger and everything, all the way down to Sana'a to study with Abdul Razzaq San'ani. So Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, who did they meet when they in the Mataf? Who did they meet in Mecca? Abdul Razzaq San'ani was already there. So they studied with him. And Imam Ahmad's companion said, Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, made it easy for us, right? Like we had an intention to do a really difficult thing, but Allah made it easy for us. We don't have to go all the way to Sana'a now. So Imam Ahmad's like, what are you talking about? Of course we're going to Sana'a. So why? We just study with him. No, we made a promise to Allah, we're going to fulfill it. So this is who this is who Abdul Razzaq San'ani is. Like he's worth going to even if you've already seen him. Right? You've already met with him, they already studied with him, yeah, we're going to go and see him anyway. Right? قال حدثنا عبيد الله وعبد الله ابن عمر عن so this is عن سعيد المقبوري عن so there's Sa'id ibn al-Maqburi and Sa'id ibn Sa'id al-Maqburi. Okay, both of them are called al-Maqburi. Okay, there's a difference. Sa'id al-Maqburi and his son Sa'id ibn Sa'id al-Maqburi. So the problem is the son will also be called Sa'id al-Maqburi. Okay, so just be aware of that. عن أبي هريرة أن ثمامة الحنفية أسر. He was imprisoned. He was taken as a captive. فأسلم. فأمره أن يغتسل فاغتسل وصلى ركعتين فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قد حسن إسلام أخيكم. Right? He's now your brother, and mashallah, he's a real Muslim now. Right? So the dhahir is amarahu and yaghtasila, that the wujub of ghusl. And what do we say in the Shafi'i school? We say it is linnadab, right? It is a recommendation. Inshallah, we'll stop here. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Okay, jazakallah khair. So please go online today. Go and find out how you can possibly buy all of these books. Why? Because you click buy and you spend a lot of money. It's not cheap. You're going to spend $1,500 at least, okay, or more. I don't know. Expensive. Then you die tonight, and the books arrive, and your wife's trying to find out what to do, and your kids, all they know is the last thing you do is spend money that you didn't have on books that you're never going to read. Right? But now your kids are older and they're like, yeah, dad bought these random books, don't know why. Right? And then they're going to open this book up like, oh, wow, this is amazing. This is a really important book. Right? And so Sheikh Ali Hani said, sacred knowledge is two things: buying books and reading them. Right? Buying books and reading them. Right? Al-Waqidi, he had two slaves. All they did for him night and day, 24 hours a day, night and day, was copy out books for him. I need books, copy out. Copy, non-stop. He basically had his own manual printing house, non-stop. Right? And so buying books is very, very important. So buy, cheat, steal. What is it? By hook or by crook, right? Buying books is really, really important. It's important for you. It's important for your community, and it's important for manuscripts, because manuscripts only come out into the light of day because there is funding to do that. They will only do that when people buy books. If people don't buy books, there's no funding. No funding, the manuscript rots. That's what happens. Right? So the Musannaf Abdul Razzaq, it needs to be redone. It was done by Al-A'zami. It needs to be redone. Right? The Musannaf Ibn Abi Shayba, mashallah, that's done properly by Sheikh Muhammad Awama. Right? Allah yahfadhu. Like, this is like one of his greatest works ever. Right? 24 volumes. But the Musannaf Abdul Razzaq, it needs more work. So in order for that to be done, there needs to be a market demand, right? The world is screaming for the Musannaf Abdul Razzaq San'ani. Therefore, the world will get the best scholars with the best funding and the best manuscripts to search everywhere and do every single thing. Otherwise, it doesn't happen, right? So when you call up whatever this bookshop in this place and say, hey, do you have the Musannaf Ibn Abdul Razzaq? They're like, oh no. And then somebody else says, then they're going to buy it, right? And then when they buy it, there's this trickle-on effect. It's a very tangible and immediate connection to the Turath, right? If you buy that book, it will keep going. If you don't buy the book, it will not keep going. That's how it is. Notice where we mentioned before that this book all goes through Spain. Why? Because they wanted the book. This book at one point was only narrated through Spain because they wanted the book, right? Other books disappear because people don't want them. They don't copy them out. They just die, right? So supply and demand, that's how it works. The Tesla only exists because people want an electric sports car. If nobody wants it, it won't exist, right? It won't exist. So it's all supply and demand, right? May Allah forgive us all. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.